In 1980, famous character actor Joe Spinell co-wrote and starred in Maniac. He also tried to get a sequel off the ground, but died before it could come into fruition. And the only thing we got was a short film to garner attention and a budget for the film. I previously reviewed the film here already, so I decided to do the remake as well. William Lustig was interested in a remake and announced one was happening all the way back in 2009. He also reportedly stated he wanted Tom Sizemore in the role of Frank, as he felt that Sizemore reminded him a lot of Spinell. However, Elijah Wood was cast instead, and this time the movie was going to be filmed in LA rather than New York. It's definitely a very different approach from the original film, but it keeps the spirit of the original film intact. The Maniac remake is a lot better than it has any right to be, kinda becoming an ongoing theme around here. The original Maniac was, despite making a ton of money at the box office, a small cult film and a passion project from Spinell and Lustig. It has a lot of heart and is a great horror flick, despite some problems. However, the remake improves on those problems and then some. It's entirely shot in POV from Frank's perspective, with a couple scenes here and there that show Frank on screen. It feels so different from most horror remakes and is definitely up there and not only belongs with great horror remakes, but great horror films in general. In terms of improving on things from the original, the gore is a lot more realistic, despite the original's gore being done amazingly by Tom Savini and is much more gruesome. Another major thing that made this film work so well is the improved relationship between Anna and Frank. In the original, it was a bit awkward and didn't make a ton of sense. However, Wood definitely manages to keep more of a normal persona throughout the relationship with her, while Anna in the original almost felt out of place. But speaking of Wood, he is absolutely fucking excellent in this film. Despite being most known for Lord of the Rings, this is one of his best performances by far. He nails the psychological torture Frank is going through and is just as good as Spinell in the original, but manages to bring his own spin to the character. I also like the change from New York to LA. In the original film, the setting was 1980 New York, which was steeped in grime and grit, like it was a character in and of itself. It had a lot of soul to it, despite that soul being rather gross and terrible. Meanwhile, in the remake, it's an incredibly soulless LA where Frank's crimes are barely being talked about, somewhat similar to Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, which I also reviewed. The color scheme is incredibly muted with the exception of to the color red. I kind of like the style, you know? It mimicked the city it was in, but also gave the movie a good visual identity, despite there not being a ton of it, if that makes sense. I do think the POV style helps with that, though. It's definitely one of those movies you can't really compare to the original because they're so different. Well, yes, I have been comparing them, obviously. I meant in terms of quality and which one is better, because both have great performances, great effects, and a great story, as well as both having different but great visual identities. I think it would be interesting to watch them back to back just to try and understand what both were trying to do and say. But both are amazing, and I think the remake does Lustig and Spinell's cult masterpiece justice. Plus, the ending in the remake is way better.